Dutch edition of Humbler Faith, Bigger God. It's a book that I'll always associate with lockdown, and during the first 9 months of the pandemic I had conversations with a number of people, but two in particular, one who was in her early 30s, another in her late teens, and I talked to each of them about why their friends struggled with the notion of Christian faith. And what we came up with was 10 subject areas, which you'll find as the titles of each of the chapters of the book. And if you look at them quite carefully, you'll see that half of them are complaints about God, and half of them aren't really complaints about God, they're really complaints about the church. And I organised them into a kind of logical sequence that made sense to me, and then realised that by addressing these, I could actually take them as gifts rather than as threats, and see them as an opportunity to restate a Christian faith that perhaps was more appropriate, what I called a story to live by. And that brings me to the second dimension. Apart from the subject matter, perhaps the biggest innovation and contribution of the book is the structure of each chapter, because each chapter is structured into 3 parts. The first is what I call the old story, where I look at traditional Christian position and also what's wrong with that position. Then in the second part I talk about what I call the rival story, which is usually secular humanism of one form or another. But importantly, I don't see all of the contributions of the rival story as damaging. Often they are getting back to something that was missing in the old story and needs renewal. And then the third area, which is the most important area, is what I call a story to live by. And in that area, I do something that I talk about in my earlier book, in Improvisation. I over-accept, I incorporate the criticism of Christianity into a renewed sense of Christianity that often recognises some things in the Christian faith were incorrectly stated almost from the very beginning, and state a kind of, and set out a Christian story, and story is a very important part of the book, set out a Christian story that I call a story we can live by. So in many ways what I'm doing is comparing 2 stories, the traditional Christian story and the story of modernity, and then bringing out of those a third story, a story that I think is truer to the heart of God than perhaps the Christian story was all along. I very much hope you enjoy the book. I think it's a great book to read in discussion with other people, some perhaps who are comfortable with Christianity, some people who are really seriously outside traditional Christianity, and some people who've got a foot in both camps. I think that's the ideal way to read the book, but I'm just delighted you want to read the book at all, and I hope you enjoy it very much.